As far as I could tell, it was a good weekend. There were big matches on both Saturday and Sunday, and I had tickets for both of them. I went to Saturday's game, and it was amazing, especially since the right team won. I ran into George during the game, and we watched the game together. "So," George said as we left, "what are your plans for the evening?" "To the pub, some beer, and a game of pool," I told him. "I have to admit that this sounds like a reasonable plan," George said. "Any objections to my joining you?" "Not on my part," I admitted, "but I suspect Heather might be against it." Heather was his wife, a lovely little girl, sweet and kind, with a very beautiful figure. She hated me. For some reason, whenever we were near each other, the hair on the backs of our necks stood on end, and growls came from the depths of our throats. We never actually fought, but we both delivered some telling insults. Why did we react to each other this way? I'll be damned if I know, and I bet Heather didn't know either. We just did it. "Heather," said George with a confident air of superiority, "we'll do what I want." "What? She is not home?" "Well, yes. Her mother was not herself, and she spent the weekend with her. She won't be back until tomorrow afternoon. Then, by all means, have a beer with me and play pool." We went to the pub, had a couple of beers, and played pool. In general, we had a pleasant time. When I say a couple of beers, I mean it because we were both driving. When we were finally ready to leave for the night, George invited me to stay with him for the night. "I'll save you the trouble of driving home, and we can go to the game tomorrow together." I lived quite far away, so it seemed like a smart idea, especially since Heather wasn't there. I followed him home and collapsed into the spare room. Before I even had time to fall asleep, I screamed and rushed to the toilet, where I began a terrible emptying of my stomach and intestines. George had not yet managed to fall asleep, and he naturally jumped out to see what all the commotion was about. "Damn, mate, is green your usual color after a couple of beers?" he asked me. "If so, then you need to stay away from grog." "It wasn't beer, damn you," I growled at him. "It was that damn hot dog you offered to buy us." "Hey, don't blame me," he said, grinning like a buffoon. "I ate shawarma and I'm fine. I told you that shawarma is the best option. The fact that he recommended shawarma didn't make me feel any happier." "I'm going back to bed," I told him. "Hopefully I've gotten rid of the frustration and will be fine in the morning. Just don't wake me up early." "No problem, buddy," he said, heading back to his bed, laughing as he went. Bastard. Thank God he let me sleep, and I felt 100% when I finally woke up. I was shocked to see that it was already past noon. This damn hot dog really threw me for a loop. However, I'm fine and hungry now. There was a note on top of my pants that I couldn't help but notice. Todd, a semi-trailer, took out a major support on the Kings Road overpass, and they're afraid the whole thing is going to collapse. I've been called in for an emergency and will be busy all day. George, take my ticket and give it to some decent guy at the game. I'll leave it on my dressing table. It seemed that life as a civil engineer was not always a 9-to-5 affair. I sympathized with George, but decided that I had better get dressed and hurry if I wanted to get to the game. Actually, I had a couple of hours to spare, but parking could be a challenge. I splashed water on my face to calm myself down a little more and got dressed. I then went down to the master bedroom to get George's ticket. I walked into the master bedroom and was shocked. I had always thought that Heather had a good figure, and the proof of this now lay before me. Heather was lying on her back reading a book with her legs slightly spread, without the slightest clothing. She was staring at me naked, and I was trying my best not to stare. Who am I kidding? Of course I was staring. Her breasts had flattened somewhat under the influence of gravity, but it was still clear that she had a decent number of them, and it was all natural. "What the hell are you doing here?" I demanded an answer, finding that she was asking me the same question at almost the same time. "Well?" she asked me when I didn't answer. "I asked first," I said. "Yes? Don't forget I live here. What are you doing here? But you should be with your mother now and should not return until this afternoon. By the way, how is she?" "She is all right, apparently for 24 hours. In case you're stuck for time, let me point out that it's afternoon. You still haven't said what you're doing here. I'm just heading to the game. I just take George's ticket, seeing that he can't use it. What? Why can't he use it? I thought he went to the game. By the way, how did you get here? I slept here last night. He saved me from returning home. I was going to the game with George. Heather started to look a little confused. Maybe it's better for me to explain, I told her. Like I said, I slept here last night. Unfortunately, I came down with a bout of food poisoning, which George found very funny. Damn him. I heard, unfortunately, non-fatal when I mentioned food poisoning. George promised not to wake me up in the morning so I could sleep off the consequences. When I woke up recently, I found a note from George saying he had to go to work, so I can take his ticket and give it to someone at the game. Today is Sunday. George never works on Sundays. He does this when his precious bridge starts to crumble, I told her. Apparently, the semi-trailer took out one of the main supports, and they're a little concerned. Okay. Well, take his ticket and leave. The sooner, the better. The problem is that I enjoy the scenery, I said quietly, and Heather looked confused. My guess is that the book blocked her view of her figure and she forgot what she was wearing or not wearing at all. Now she remembered, gasped, and froze, and the book slipped out of her hands. After mature reflection, it occurred to me that she had not forgotten and was deliberately exposing herself to me, if it can be called exposing the fact that she was lying naked and chatting incessantly. Why do I suspect this might happen? This was indicated by her breasts. I doubt she would have reacted if she didn't know she was on display. Do you like being an exhibitionist? I asked affably. What? I am not like that. Get out of here, forget about the ticket and just go. All the right words and no attempt to hide anything, which made them less than convincing. Now that I thought about it, she might even have known I was here. George left me a note. Why shouldn't he leave her alone too? An exhilarating experience, isn't it? Even very exciting. A little illicit erotica might just make your day. No, she said. I'm in my own bedroom. Why would I assume that some asshole would barge in on me? You can turn around and go back. It's just because I'm cold, she said quickly. I'm sure that's true. Is it so cold that you have to be naked to stay warm? I don't think it works that way. You actually look a little hot and flushed, I remarked. She pressed her hand to her cheeks, as if checking what color they were. No, it's not like that, she said, apparently denying that she had blushed. Fair enough, since I have to admit that her cheeks weren't actually flushed. Oh, I wasn't talking about your cheeks, I said, looking at her. This caused a certain reaction. Her cheeks were now flushed, and she brought her legs together, lowering her arm to cover herself. Don't be so damn stupid, I told her, grabbing her ankle and pulling it to the side. We both know what's going to happen. She started cursing. I think she wanted to deny that anything could happen, but it was hard for her to do that when she knew damn well it would. I unfastened my belt and pulled down my pants. Her eyes widened a little, and she muttered again, but made no attempt to roll off the bed. Obviously, any resistance had to be verbal, and not much of it was. She lay there, watching, waiting, and anticipating. I waited a little longer. What are you waiting for? She finally asked. Just wanted to make sure you were ready, I said. I wouldn't want to take you by surprise. The look she gave me said she was about to yell at me, so I had to take action. God, she was waiting for me in my actions, and I passionately began to kiss and caress her. She felt good about demonstrating the urgency of her own need. It was definitely normal for me. After that, things got really interesting. In terms of vocals, I have to admit that we were a bit quiet. We were both focused on having fun, not interested in talking about it. My excitement was growing, and judging by Heather's reaction, hers was just as excited. It was clear that everything was about to end in a grand way. So I changed the rules. A short delay allowed me to rest and calm down a bit, and I was able to have sex again with renewed enthusiasm. My arms wrapped around her. It took even less time to continue until she reached the point where she was close to climax. Everything was fine with her, but not with me. It still took me some time to reach the finish line. After a while, she became speechless again, first asking and then demanding that I continue. I politely ignored her comments, quite happy with what had happened. I explained to her that I would need some time to regain my strength and prepare for the next race, so she would wait a little while until I was ready. Then she started cursing. I quietly explained to her that I would be ready soon and we would continue. Don't worry, everything would be fine. Soon I regained my strength and we continued to pay attention to each other. After some time, we simultaneously reached a happy climax. I smiled to myself while looking at her beautiful body. She lay back on the bed and breathed heavily. I stood up and reached out and took George's ticket. "You," I said softly, "were simply magnificent." She didn't say anything, but looked rather smug. I allowed myself to go out. I still had time to get to the game. At least George would be pleased. His ticket had to be used, and now Heather and I had a better relationship. Subscribe to our channel so that your second chaff doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think about listening to the next one.